Hello my friends, welcome into a new style of video, at least for me. Sorry about the lack of uploads for the last 3 weeks. You might notice though that I have a much better microphone. After I started working on this, I didn't feel much drive to continue the Chronicles playthrough. If people are interested in seeing me complete the rest of that, let me know. Otherwise I think I'll just keep moving forward. But what am I going to be moving forward with? Challenge runs are my plan, and more edited, cut down videos are how I plan to do them. This first challenge run is in Age of Empires 2, but I have a bunch of ideas for challenges in a lot of other games. Some of them are totally original challenges, and some of them are inspired by other YouTube challenges that I've seen. This one, as you can probably tell from the title, is the Joan of Arc campaign without using any cavalry. Now, there is an exception that people who have played this will be able to predict, but we'll address that when we get to it. For now, the rule is no cavalry. So no knights, no scouts, no cavalry heroes, no cavalry archers. We're playing as the Franks, so while the cavalry archers won't really be missed, the knights are a huge loss. Nearly everything about the Civ is built around the Knightline, and we won't be able to use it. To start us off, we have the first level, an unlikely Messiah. This one doesn't change a whole lot, but we start off with something we have to do. Our two hero friends won't be making it out of the camp. With our cavalry having tripped and stayed behind, the rest of our forces marched on. Nothing else about the levels changed, and there isn't much fighting where the heroes will be missed, so it's pretty simple. We push south past some wolves and get a good view of the French getting stomped by the English. That's not our problem though, so we wait it out and continue toward our goal, with just a little trouble controlling our units. We battle some highwaymen and lose 2 crossbows, but that won't stop us. Only Joan has to make it. We make a detour due to a Burgundian fort blocking our path, but only to grab some, thankfully, non-cavalry reinforcements. With our new troops and ram, we smash our way through the Burgundians and their pack of wolves. We just need to march on until we find some transports that can carry us across the river. There's a big ambush prepared, but no reason to wait around for it, so we sail away. Hopping out at the little gap in the cliffs lets us avoid any more battles and bring Joan safely to Chinon and the Dauphin. While the first level wasn't much different, the second, the Maid of Orléans, has some more differences. We start with nearly all cavalry, so they will have to wait this one out. Let's say they all called in sick. Here we arrive at the big issue with the run. Joan must survive, and Joan rides a horse. So the answer to the question is no. You can't beat the campaign without any cavalry. But ending here wouldn't be much fun, so we'll continue, and Joan will just stay out of the battles. With our fighting force down to 2 two-handed swordsmen, we have to skirt around the next Burgundian ambush. They really aren't very good at pulling these things off. We arrive and take control of the French army, but wouldn't you know it, they forgot to feed all the horses, so they're going to have to stay back. The rest of us move on, and though the trade carts are closed, no one is riding that horse, so I think it's fine. We find some more convenient transport ships, and nearly all of us fit aboard. After crossing the river, we gain control of both the city of Orléans and the economy out to the west. Now we have a new goal: destroying one of the 4 English castles. As the English won't make any ships, we immediately wall up the bridge crossing the river to keep the South English and the Burgundians from making any moves. I also immediately click up to the castle aid, which rolls into building another town center. We're only given 3 villagers, so we need to grow our eco as fast as possible. We start mining some stone to build a castle, not a moment too soon, as it takes care of the South English, letting the army of crossbows move up to defend the eco. We'll continue on like this, growing our economy and defenses while getting the technology we'll need. Getting some fishing ships, as well as much eco as we can have in the city, both help to keep work going during attacks. Some throwing axemen were really helpful in holding back the South English rams. A few more castles secure the borders to keep everything safe, despite a small breakthrough in the city walls. For this level, and the next one for that matter, we're stuck in the Castle Age, so the poor quality of Frank archers isn't a big deal. Due to that, I'll be making crossbows as my main force to defend, then go on the attack. However, this level has a small pop cap of 125, which is better than the original 75, but doesn't let us have a huge army. As a way around this, I decided to focus on building defenses. The AI isn't very good at handling defenses, so they are always a pretty good choice in campaigns. We push forward with villagers and crossbows to build some forward defenses. I thought it would be fun to try taking out the castle with my own castle. The crossbows defended while the villagers built, but when I got there I realized there were too many trees for this to work. But at this point I was determined, so I built a castle a little further back to cover the villagers while they cut down the trees. This took quite a while, but it was a fun challenge. After clearing enough trees, we were able to build a final castle in range of the English, loaded it up with all the archers, and fired away. About 1,000,000 shots later, the English castle was down, and we completed the level. As fun as it is to set up offensive buildings, the next level had us breaking down 3 English castles, so I won't be doing that again. We start on the wrong side of the river, but before we cross, we noticed that all the horses needed reshoeing, so we had to push on without them. Fortunately, we get the greatest infantry hero of all time, Lahir, who will help us until we can get established across the Loire. First order of business is to build up the eco, so we throw up some house walls, both to defend and allow us to train more villagers. We fell under attack pretty quickly, and the Burgundians knocked down our wall, so the pressure was on. That is, until Lahir showed up and annihilated the enemy. Once we had a decent economy, we clicked up to the castle age and started sorting out our attack plans. Lahir and the crossbows did a fair job of fighting off the attacks while we built up. Our first castle attempt was nearly thwarted by a big attack from the English, but we got it up. The castle gives us somewhere for Joan to hide and take care of her horse. With all the attacks, I wanted to move some of our eco to someplace safer, so I shipped them back across the river to chop wood on the southern island. One more castle settled the defense, with Lahir to hop out and defend as needed. I trained up an army of rams that Fastolf was very impressed by, and some crossbows to protect them as we prepared to attack the closest castle. A few petards blasted through the wall, and the assault was on. The castle only seemed to have archers defending it, so our rams didn't have much to worry about. Destroying the first castle caused Fastolf to start attacking the base, and he reached the Imperial Age. Fortunately, I knew it was coming, so I made a huge ball of crossbows to catch all the knights and cavaliers as they came in, and we even took out Fastolf himself. We did lose the defensive castle to his big army of capped rams, but we were able to stop the attack. As much as the crossbows worked, I started teching into pikes to handle the subsequent attacks. I really should have done this before, as another attack came in and went on a tear through the base. I had moved the army on the attack to go after the second castle, so they weren't around to defend. This is one of the reasons that low population caps are hard. On the bright side, the siege of the second castle went well, and it was destroyed, at the cost of the rest of our rams. The constant production of pikes and crossbows also stabilized the home base. We shipped some of our villagers around the map in search of more gold and stone, and they were able to gather enough to replace the lost castle. Our final attack was going to be a big force of petards, until I made the brilliant decision to sail a transport full of them right past some English towers. At the same time, our gold miners were being raided by the English army. I took a second petard army and shipped them across the Loire to avoid the tower, but they weren't nearly enough to take down the castle. The third petard army was only enough to blow up the gate. At this rate, I should have just used rams, but I wasn't going to give up. Altogether, it probably took more than 100 petards, but that fourth army did the trick. Sending in a guard of longswords seemed to do it. With the third castle down, the level is won. The fourth level, the Rising, is the first where we can reach the Imperial Age, so our game plan changes a bit. Our crossbows really won't hold up anymore, but that will be something that comes up later. For now, we need to remove the cavalry that we start with. Everyone forgot to secure their saddles, so it wouldn't be safe. Without the knights, we can't push through the English guards, so we'll have to skirt around them. We take command of the army camp and need to prepare for imminent attacks. The first move was walling up the shallows, the closer one, but we're interrupted by the English guards. With support from the town center, we can handle it and get on with bigger things. The mission has us destroying the 3 enemy town centers. Quick as possible, we also need to wall up the second shallows. A couple of castles to make the defenses solid, or so I thought. The AI, or specifically Chalon, will build transport ships to make attacks. They'll be our first target, with their TC so close to the river, it shouldn't be too hard to strike before they know what hit them. I opened a gap in the walls and built a maze to give the AI something to distract itself. Hopefully it will be enticing enough to avoid going over the water. Rams threw a wrench into the defense with its longbows and trebs that can outrange my castle. We didn't have much of an army to speak of to hold down the defense. The castle was barely able to handle the first wave. 4 barracks will change the army situation quick enough. We really need to take down Chalon, as they started sending in cannon galleons that can also outrange our castle. The attacks kept getting heavier and the castle was lost, but the infantry numbers kept growing higher, and they would soon be champions. The infantry were able to hold them off long enough for us to replace the castle with 2 more. After the castles were built, there was finally enough of a break in the attacks to build up our army numbers and get all the infantry upgrades that we needed. We sent the army out across the river and crushed the Chalon cavalry, before keeping up the momentum to wipe out their town center. It was a close thing with all the scorpions, but our champions won the day. That being said, they were pretty much wiped, so we needed to train a new army. Removing Chalon made the attacks come less frequently, so the champions were ready to go again quickly. Troy was the next target, and they fell in an instant. We didn't even have to fight their army. With the army still near full strength, we were able to sneak them in through the Realm's Gate and destroy the final TC, winning the scenario. The penultimate level is one that a lot of people have struggled with in the past, the Siege of Paris. It would be even harder without any cavalry. So far, the beginning of levels has been pretty different, but we can pretty quickly train new armies. Not in this level. We get a fixed army with just a few opportunities for reinforcements. That being said, it's the same for our enemies, and every unit we kill is a permanent loss for them. Most of our army is infantry and archers, so we don't lose too much. All of our cavalry were on each other's horses, so while we got that sorted out, the rest of the army moved forward, skirting along the western side of Paris. We needed to break in and save the villagers that were stuck in there. Our most important asset was our force of long-range siege. We had trebs, bombard cannons, and a hero cannon, which were critical to breaking through the tough English defenses. Unfortunately, while our siege was top-notch, our army was quite poor, and our crossbows and pikes didn't hold up very well against the Imperial Age English units. So, after luring out the English defenders, we break in and save the villagers. A new goal had us fighting our way through the city to escape to Compiègne. We could use the long line of sight on our trebs to scout ahead and limit our losses. Before anything further, we had to use our remaining cannons to shoot down the English navy, which was a little finicky, but ultimately successful. A slow push to the bridge to take out the towers, only to get more reinforcements than we expected. Should have known it was too good to be true. The scout was only there to escort and had to leave. I chose to pause to keep him from joining the fight. The bridge defenders were overwhelmed, but at a heavy loss, especially to their onager. We even had the villagers get in on the action to kill some archers. By this point, we were really getting low on numbers, but we would be getting some help pretty soon. I scouted across the river, shooting what I could until we got the reinforcements. I paused again to make sure to delete the 2 knights, and the rest of the troops finished off the English defenders. The cannon shot through the wall, and we were free to escape the city. We had one final challenge in bringing the villagers and Joan to Compiègne, and we needed to get past the Burgundians. They had a huge Imperial Age army, and it would be quite the challenge for our small remaining force. Our army snuck along the bottom, and then used the long range of the trebs to lure them away, to let the villagers sneak in. The final move was for Joan to ride toward the fort. The level ends, and we find out that the Burgundians were finally able to pull off a successful ambush. They grabbed Joan, then handed her over to the English, who burned her at the stake. Our final level, we will have our revenge. We meet the narrator, but he's stuck on a horse, so he's out of here. We bring the flag cart to the main army and immediately send the cavalry away. It's what Joan would have wanted. We do at least get to see the return of Lahire. Our goal for this level is to bring the flag cart to the English base at Castillon, but that will have to wait for a while. Our first order of business is destroying the closer Burgundian city, to both get some resources and take its walls for our own use. The army we started with was enough to defeat theirs, so we took out the towers, castle, and TC. We started building up the eco while sending the army north to fight Shrewsbury. Attacking Shrewsbury early makes it pretty quick and easy, and opens up the area to our use. The enemy was going to start attacking pretty soon, so we needed to gather some stone for a castle. Jean Barreau was lost somewhat unnecessarily because I got distracted, but it's not the end of the world. As soon as we had enough stone, the defenses went up, both castles and walls, while the eco is improved further. Unfortunately, the castle wasn't up before the attack started, so what was left of the army had to hold them off for a short time. The moment the first castle was up, construction started on the next one. We didn't get much time to stabilize before the English joined in on the attack. They brought with them trebuchets, so we wouldn't be able to just hide behind our castles. The longbows protecting them made it pretty difficult, and the castle was repaired to gain some more time. We couldn't keep it up though, and the castle in the south fell. A few throwing axemen took out a treb, but things were not looking good. I then remembered that we had a couple of bombard cannons, and we could use them to take down the trebs. We would have to be very careful though, as this was pretty much our last resort. We were able to lure the longbows to the northern castle, and once they were gone, finally able to fend off the attack. With the time we had bought ourselves, we built a new castle, a little further back this time, so that our cannons could take out the enemy siege. The Burgundian attacks were constant, but the castles could handle it. Throwing axemen would serve as the defenders until our barracks was set up and ready to go. A second eco in Shrewsbury's old base was important, both for gold and for being more defensible. We could finally click up to Imperial and grab the upgrades we'll need. In the Imperial Age, Frank archers are terrible, and we couldn't have cavalry, so we went for throwing axemen, champions, and halberdiers. Castillon had some of the strongest defenses, so it would take a huge force of infantry to crack the fortress. We used some trebs and our throwing axemen to strike at the English towers holding the river. Before attacking the English, the Burgundians had to go. The army marched south, supported by bombard cannons to deal with the buildings. The throwing axemen handled the English navy handily, but while the army was away, the English sent a wave of cavalry to raid the base. With so many attacks, the first move against the Burgundians was crushed, and more production buildings had to be made to solve our issues. We did start running out of gold mines, so the plan became a flood of halbs that would overcome everything with numbers and defend the siege. It takes a lot of halberdiers to defeat fully upgraded longbows, but it can be done. Another support option was our own navy on the river, with cannon galleons to take out some buildings. It was time for the second assault on the Burgundians, this time with halb reinforcements coming in continuously to replace losses. It took some time and heavy losses, but the Burgundians just couldn't stand up to the pressure of 9 barracks worth of halbs. The cannon galleon was successful in taking out a lot of towers until everything within range of the water was eliminated. The Burgundians also had a market, so we could get a trade route going to supplement our gold. The full production of halbs and cannons then turned on Castillon, and the slow push crawled forward. There were some setbacks. Losing cannons takes a while to replace, but every tower destroyed was a permanent step forward. The English just didn't have the production to keep up with what was now 18 barracks. The only frustrating thing was the low population limit, still 125, although back in the original release it would have been 75, so I can't complain too much. We switched to using trebuchets, both to use the castles that had been sitting idle and have something that would hold up better under arrow fire. It was only a matter of time, and after nearly 2 hours of the game and more than 500 units lost, the final level was complete. We had beaten the whole Joan of Arc campaign without any cavalry, except for Joan herself. While the challenge was technically a failure, it was still a very fun time, and a way to add some challenge to a campaign that, while incredibly nostalgic, was and is very easy. Franks with that cavalry are pretty weak, especially against siege and archery, but having fully upgraded infantry to fall back on made it all possible. Also, having most of the levels end before the Imperial Age made Frank archers viable, despite being some of the worst in the game when fully upgraded. This was a fun challenge and video to make, so I hope you enjoyed it. It was definitely something new for me, but I plan to continue with this style of challenge runs. I couldn't say exactly when the next video will come out, so if you enjoyed and would like to see more, please consider subscribing to catch the next one when it comes out. Until then, I hope you have a great day.